Classic Restos is proudly brought to you by Shannon's, where you can sign up to be a member of the Shannon's Club, your local Holden Certified Service Centre, Pace Farm the Enjoyable Egg, and Heron Forbes Machinery House, where you can buy online. Whilst in South Australia, I just had to bring you back to the National Motor Museum here in Birdwood. Inside, something exclusive awaits you. You may have been here, may have already seen it, but if you haven't, you're about to, in this week's Classic Restos on the road. Once inside, a whole new experience awaits you. Now, there's been some other episodes done of Classic Restos here at Birdwood, and you can search for those on the Shannon's Club. But what you're about to see by Holden is heartwarming and exceptionally special. What you are seeing here are Holden's finest and most important machines, never been seen under one roof. Please allow me to introduce you to Holden Heroes. Time to wind the clock back, representing the year of 1948 through to 2017 with the last of a VF. This is a retrospective showcase, 18 of the most special vehicles from Holden's heritage collection on display at the National Motor Museum here in Birdwood, just over an hour's drive from Adelaide Airport. The National Motor Museum has partnered with General Motors to exhibit some of Australia's most significant motoring history. This collection of respective marque is the best that I have seen outside of the United States. On display, you will see the amazing Hurricane from 1969, the unique Tirana GT-RX from 1970, along with the fantastic and brave design of the Effigy from 2005, just to name three. And that is not all of them. There is also the number one Holden. Yes, the first from 1948 to roll off the line, stretching through the automotive timeline, ending with the very last Australian-made Holden, a Vf Commodore Series 2 SS Redline from 2017, a proven world-class car. This display will also show you each time a millionth Holden was produced, another significant milestone produced by Holden. Now, let's take a look at some of Holden's millionth cars. The 1 millionth Holden was this 1963 EJ Sedan Premier. The 2 millionth Holden was this 1968 HK Brougham. The 4th millionth Holden was this 1981 VC Commodore SLE Sedan. The 6 millionth, this 2001 VX Commodore SS. And rounding off the 7th millionth Holden in 2008 was this VE Commodore. One of the most amazing cars created back in 2005 would have to go down as Effigy. And I'm lucky enough now on the phone to have Richard Filazzo. He's the guy behind this that styled the car and had a lot to do with it. Good morning, Richard. How are you?
Good morning, Fletch. Great to talk to you again.
Thank you very much. We're standing beside your car.
Oh, we'll give it a polish while you're there, will you, please?
Richard, this is just an incredible design. I don't think there's one enthusiast around the world, especially in this country, that could deny such an incredible car. Where did it go back with you? Where did you get the idea from? Where did it all start?
Oh, gosh, it goes back a long way, Fletch. I started Holden in 1988, and it wasn't much long after I was just looking through some magazines with all my colleagues there, and I don't mind saying that some of the inspiration came from Larry Erickson's Cagzilla. It was a concept car at the time. I remember doing some sketches and thinking, we could do a fabulous custom car of an FJ one day, using the resources of a talent like we have at the design centre. But of course, it just seemed like a pipe dream. Who would ever do that? Years later, as it transpired, I actually worked with Larry Erickson while I was on assignment in Detroit. And it got me thinking again. Came back home. We had been doing a few concept cars by then, after the Monaro and others in the early 2000s. And it dawned on me that the 50th anniversary of the FJ was coming up. And I thought, well, you don't ask, you don't get. So I put some sketches together and then I put it to the team. Mike Simcoe was my boss at the time. I said, what if we did some sort of radical concept car that was based on an FJ? Just for fun, we had done all sorts of other things. And that's where it kind of started. People kind of lukewarm at first. They thought, yeah, it looks good, great looking drawings, but how do we sell this concept? Well, it took a lot of lobbying, but eventually we got it off the ground, and it began as a labour of love. I had a whole bunch of guys around me who were just happy to work after hours, just doing it and see if we can get it over the line. And then finally, I took it to what was then the managing director, who was then, it was Denny Mooney. I said, all sorts of tip cars, this would be something different. It'd be just a celebration of, our passion for design, engineering, the Holden brand, the Australian auto industry. It'd be just something to do for the public. What do you think? So, how much will that cost? So, well, don't worry about the labour. We've got that covered with people who are just more than willing to put up their time. And it would take a few $100,000, things that we couldn't make ourselves. So he finally said, yeah, what, just do it. This will be fun. And that's how it came about. Fletch, it was really just a labour of love and just an expression of our passion.
Also, too, Richard, it reflects a different time, doesn't it? It must have been an incredible time at Holden where they were so receptive to these ideas and so open in terms of when it came to the checkbook.
Yes, you're quite right there. I mean, it's always been tight with the checkbook. People think that car companies have, zillions of dollars to throw around, but it's just not the case. It's a very cutthroat environment. There's very low margins on vehicles. You have to sell a lot of them to make money, and often you don't make any money. You're just relying on assets in the pool. But to get these things over the line, I think they are receptive if they see the same passion in the people.
Also, too, I think a lot of expenses too that we don't consider on a daily basis too, like down to research and development. You turn up and take the new car for a test drive, and it feels good and it drives nice, but a lot of us just don't appreciate the amount of millions that have gone into just that alone to perfect that car.
Oh, absolutely. And people would be astonished to see the bills behind developing vehicles. Even the smallest things to tool up. Yep. Like a front grille for a radiator grille is hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Plus all the amount of work that goes in it. So, yes, it's a very expensive industry.
Richard, I want to thank you so much for your time. We've a fairly primitive way to do an interview on Classic Restos, standing here and holding an iPhone, but it's always a pleasure catching up with you, Richard, and I do really appreciate your time this morning.
Oh, you're very welcome, Fletch, and look forward to seeing you next time.
Okay, buddy, you take care of yourself. And after having just spoken to the head of styling of Holden back in the day, Richard Filazzo, that should give you some idea of how mighty General Motors Holdens were. Their ability to style, craft, design, manufacture and carry through. The second series Monaro was a great success, and as a part of that success was going to be this car here, the 2002 Marilyn Monaro Cabriolet. Everything attributing to a great convertible car that you'd ever want. All the styling under the sun, of course the luxurious appointments on the inside, and this car was supposed to be mass-produced, but sign of the times, unfortunately, never went ahead.
My passion for cars began when Nana and Pop bought their new Toyota Crown. It was Nana's, really. She loved that car. We went everywhere in it. My passion now is just the same, even though my cars are a little different. I've still got Nana's car, couldn't part with it. And I reckon if she was here today, She'd be insured with Shannon's too.
Call Shannon's on 13 46 46. Shannon's, insurance for motoring enthusiasts.
They may not be making the classic Holden anymore, but the legacy lives on. You can still have a Holden certified service using genuine Holden and AC Delco quality parts at over 180 centres across Australia. Go to holden.com.au to find your nearest centre. Book your Holden in, maintain the pride. Looking back, I think where I take my hat off to Holden was their ability to come up with so many concepts, so many shapes, styles, designs, and potential models for mass production. Now, making your way through the Holden Heroes display here at the National Motor Museum at Birdwood, you can see these one-off cars. We all remember the surf brand Mambo. Well, they played an integral part in the Series 2 of the Sandman that unfortunately never went ahead. Nice to know though that the canopy on the back was sold as a genuine accessory for the VU Ute. And in 2008, Holden's last concept car could have well been this Series 3 Monaro. What an incredible car. Again, never went ahead nor released to the public. If there was one period of Australian car manufacturing that I found interesting, and I'm sure you might as well, was around the time of 1980. Lots of silly things were happening. The threat of the fuel crisis and prices rising to run our cars. Beautiful cars like Statesmans and Fairlanes and Chrysler by Chryslers being traded for astronomically low prices in favour of a smaller, more economical type car. What were the big three going to do? Well, we know that Chrysler was on their way out, ending in 1981. The VB Commodore, well, they went smaller and came out in 1978. And Falcon continued from their XC into the more European-styled XD. Where did that leave the Kingswood? It ran up to 79 with the HZ, but where to from there? Of course, the introduction of the WB came about, which to me was interesting. The WB, as you know, was introduced as a one-tonner. It was also introduced as a ute and also a WB Statesman. But there was no four-door car to replace the Kingswood, but there was one on the drawing board. This here is the prototype for that era. This was going to be the WB Kingswood. Yes, the four-door sedan up against the XD Falcon and, I guess, riding alongside the Commodore as well. One of the curators here at the National Motor Museum here at Birdwood. Michael, how are you?
Good, thanks, Fletch. How are you?
Good, mate. Good, good. You having fun?
Yeah, it's a great day.
Yeah. That's my opening question in a lot of cases, because working in a place like this, you'd have to be happy, wouldn't you?
Oh, definitely. There's always something new happening every day. Lots of visitors around. Always get asked all sorts of interesting questions.
Absolutely. You've been here a few years now too, haven't you?
Yeah, about 5 full-time.
Yeah, good for you. Interesting times. We just spoke about the WB prototype there, but when we look at the first of the Commodore too, that's also an interesting era, 1978 with the VB Commodore. It's almost, when we look at the Holden models, it's almost as though they had too many cars available.
In one way, they were looking towards the future with the Commodore, and another way, they were still holding on to the past a bit, because obviously the Kingswood was a very popular car and it did have lots and lots of fans. But there were a few factors at play, main being all the oil crises of the 1970s. That meant they were trying to focus more on smaller, more compact and more fuel-efficient vehicles.
What is interesting though too, Michael, is that we're looking at a VB Commodore from 1978. You could still buy yourself a brand new HZ four-door Kingswood in the same year. And apart from that, there was also the UC Tirana, which was running as well, which you could still buy. And when you look at the interior room and space of a UC Tirana compared to this first Commodore, you're only talking fractions of millimetres in difference. So you had the Tirana to choose from, the Commodore to choose from, and the Kingswood to choose from.
Yeah, I guess Holden were at a bit of a critical junction, if you want to call it that. So, and you know, ultimately natural selection, the Commodore kind of won out. And I don't know if it was so much for the amount of room that was inside, because at the end of the day, all three of those vehicles probably have enough room for a regular family. But the Commodore definitely had a much more modern feeling interior. In fact, I'm just looking at the two of them, and you know, this is very forward looking, a nice sort of cloth seats and very sort of 1980s looking dashboard, whereas you go to or the WB, but any of the Kingswoods, much more 1970s in feel.
Yeah. Good on you, Michael. Thanks very much for chatting. Before we go, with the museum, opening days, you're watching this episode, you need to come here to Birdwood, check out this place. What's the deal there?
The good news is we're open every single day except for Christmas Day. And we're open from 10 in the morning to 5 p.m, so there's plenty of time. Do allow yourself a couple of hours because there's over 350 vehicles. Some people get absolutely lost here. My boss calls it the TARDIS. You think you're finished and there's 3 more rooms to go.
What I always love about Birdwood and the handful of museums we have left in this country playing the same way, that the displays are changing often as well, and I think that's great. You can keep on coming back and seeing different things. So keep up your great work.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. There was no doubt that the automotive industry was well established before the outbreak of World War II, but there was no mass-produced car in Australia until this one behind us, the 48215, of course standing for the year 1948 and 215 for 2.15 litre engine. This Holden here was first off the production line and then paving the way for the next 70 years of local car manufacturing.
Years ago, BSA built more bikes than anyone in the world. Beautiful, handcrafted, proper works of art. Real enthusiasts understand. And Shannon's, of course. Young Mick's passion's a bit high-tech for me, but deep down, it's the same. And Shannon's understand that as well. Which is why Shannon's insure our bikes, cars, and now, even our home.
Call Shannon's on 13 46 46. Shannon's, insurance for motoring enthusiasts.
When it comes to cars, there are some brands that will remain with us forever, no matter what. The Holden was always Australia's own car, held high in the hearts of many. Those lines, that chrome, the stories around them, and the people that owned them. From the classic through to the final, you can still trust in genuine Holden and AC Delco parts, available through the Holden Certified Service Network. If you've got a classic bike, why not have it insured with Shannon's? Why not pick up the phone and give Shannon's a call for a quote and a chat on 134646? And signing up to become a member of the Shannon's Club has never been easier. For more information, visit shannons.com.au. All right, away from the cars now and into the bikes. How are you, Matt?
I'm good, thanks, Fletch. Yourself?
Good, mate, good, great. This display just keeps getting better and better.
Thank you very much. As you can see on your left-hand side, we've got a range of motorcycles, principally categorised by the type and what the bikes are used for. So we've got racing bikes, we've got motocross bikes, we've got commuters and scooters, and right down the far end we've got sidecars or side chairs. So it's quite a mixture. It's all designed to show people the different types of motorcycles and what they do.
Yeah. Down the end there, some of those Harleys, they just look fantastic with their high sidewall tyres, the old police bike look back from the 60s. There's just so much variance in here. It doesn't matter what type of bike you might be into, whether it be the dirt or the track, there's something here, isn't there?
Yeah, well, that's the idea. There's a spread of bikes through a spread of ages.
Yeah.
We don't have every bike, we don't have every particular make or model, but the idea is to try and give people an overview of motorcycling in Australia.
Yeah. The way you've got it set out too, Matt, it's absolute credit to the museum too. Little safety railing around each section and, you know, plenty of room to walk and take photos and really appreciate these machines. It's fantastic.
Yeah, we do what we can. There's always, like everyone who owns cars and bikes will know, there's never enough room, but we try and squeeze as many as we can in without it being too clogged up, so to speak.
Yeah, it's amazing too the era that the bike represents too. If we go way back, the beginning of last century, the push bike was a means of transport for a lot of people. people getting to work would ride a push bike. That continued on into the 40s, the 50s, the 60s. Bikes were used in situations where maybe a car wasn't affordable. But then you've got your sheer passion too, where there was a guy that wouldn't get in a car, he'd only ride a bike too. So you've got all these different levels of the uses and applications of where bikes were applied.
Well, motorcycle enthusiasts are a breed apart. They're very passionate about their bikes and particularly about the make that they ride. So we quite understand that some of the motorcycle enthusiasts come here, walk straight past the cars, which might surprise people, and go straight to the bikes.
Yeah.
But that's their passion and that's their lifetime interest.
Yeah. Matt, well, okay, thank you very much. Obviously, there is just so much to see here at this museum, and blokes like this around, when you visit, you can't go wrong. You'll take people around and show them the odd bike, won't you, Matt?
We love to, Fletch. It's part of our job, part of our life story.
Good on you, mate. Look, I really appreciate you turning up here today and being a part of this episode of Classic Restos, giving us a quick look around here, mate. Thank you very much.
Not a problem, Fletch. Thank
Cheers.
you.
Thanks,
Cheers.
Matt. Cheers.
Bye.
Hey, Nigel, how you doing?
I'm good, Fletch. How are you?
Good, mate. What have we got here?
This is a 1900 de Dion Bouton vis-a-vis.
Hang on, slow down. Yeah. Say that again.
A 1900 de Dion Bouton vis-a-vis.
Ah, de Bouton. What a machine. This is beautiful.
It is very beautiful. We've spent a few weeks doing a little bit of work on it.
A few weeks?
Yeah, just a few weeks. So she's been in the museum for a while and actually hasn't had an awful lot of work done to her. Yep. We've purchased a new carburetor for it and had to do a lot of modifications to make it fit so that we can actually take this vehicle to Ballarat to compete in a pre-1905 rally.
Very interesting. We look at the period of this vehicle, 1900. This is right in that time where the guy on the land or anyone with a horse was reluctant to go into automotive products because they were probably scared that the machine wouldn't work.
Well, probably. And affordability would have been a big thing for them as well. It would have been only those that could have afforded to put four wheels under them rather than four legs.
This was a wealthy person's vehicle in 1900. There's no doubt about that.
Oh, no doubt. I don't think your average coal miner or someone like that would have jumped in his de Dion Bouton and gone down to the coal mine and done some work. And
so the de Dion Bouton, tell us about the engine. I'm fascinated with the mechanical side because when it starts, it runs like a dream. To think something is, 121 years old, kind of hard to comprehend. It's got a piston and a crankshaft and it runs so well.
Yeah, it's... Well, these are born out of tricycles or bike engines, so basic principles and build of a normal engine. The only difference with this one is it runs an atmospheric inlet valve on it. So it actually doesn't have a tappet or a guide or anything on it. It's actually just got a valve on it.
Is it like a reed valve?
Sort of like a reed valve. It basically gets pulled down, air and fuel moves in, but it does have a mechanical exhaust valve on it. So single cylinder, 3.5 horsepower, but it actually gets along quite well, really.
Yeah, well, it's all about the gearing too, isn't it? 3.5 horsepower and what's it good for? 25, 30 mile an hour?
I think they were listed as probably being able to do about 30 mile an hour.
Hanging on, that's like 60 k's an hour. You'd be, it's almost like a billy cart out of control, isn't it?
It is almost. I mean, coming down the hill there, even about probably 20 is a bit like, the good thing about this one is that when it was actually restored, someone actually did put a foot brake in it, so. Okay, Fletch, so basically how we drive it is it's actually got this tiller at the top, so this is how you actually move it and steer it. This particular lever here actually sets your air-fuel mixture. So as you're driving along, you sort of try and work out where it's best running and then set that one up. And this one is your advance and retard. And so you move that one, that'll give you a little bit more revs to get up a hill. And then usually, from what I've been told, you actually run it slightly retarded as she's trundling down the road. And this one is your gear lever. So you actually pull that one down here for first gear. And when you're going fast enough and you want to go into second, just go up and into second gear. And that's pretty well much how you do it. Now, combining all four of those things together while you're actually driving it, that's a bit of a challenge. It's no just get in, put it into drive and off you go. It's work the hand controls.
Nigel, I think that's outstanding. Having a piston and a crankshaft's one thing, but we've got a two-speed gearbox as well.
Yep, and the most important one is actually got a reverse gear as well. So to actually get reverse gear, you actually press on a lever and then you can select first or second. So it's actually got 3 speeds in it.
Talk about state of the art for 1900. That's amazing.
Oh, it's like top of the range, isn't it? You can't go wrong. As I said, it's quite an interesting vehicle to be driving. The beauty of my job is I get to tinker and have a little bit of a drive and learn what it used to be like in the day. So,
Nigel, been wonderful catching up. It's a nice way to round off this episode here at Birdwood. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your knowledge on this this device, this machine, this car, 121 years old. As we mentioned earlier, a wealthy person would have paid the money for this back in the day, and a form of transport, motorised so long ago. Just incredible.
it is incredible. You just wouldn't believe back in the day that the Dion was the biggest seller of motor vehicles in the 1900s.
Nigel, thank you very much, mate.
Thank you, Fletch. Thanks for coming down and thanks for being at the museum. So
You're welcome. Thanks,
We're
mate.
always open, mate.
Thank you, mate. Thank you. Well, I hope you've really enjoyed this week's episode of Classic Restos at the National Motor Museum here in Birdwood, South Australia. And I'd just like to tell you that what you've seen in this episode is just a toe in the water as to what you can physically see when you visit this museum. I hope you enjoyed the show. Until next week, no matter where you're watching Classic Restos from, please ride and drive safe. I'm Fletch, and I thank you very much for watching. You can like and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/Classic Restos TV and watch catch-up episodes at shannons.com.au. Classic Restos is proudly brought to you by Shannons, where you can sign up to be a member of the Shannons Club, your local Holden certified service centre, Pace Farm the enjoyable egg, and Heron Forbes Machinery House, where you can buy online.